Did I really fly? The motherboard continued. By Johnny DiPolo. A reflection on Don Juan, the gargoyle, and trusting experience. This essay explores a question raised by Carlos Castaneda's conversations with the shaman Don Juan. Do you trust what you experienced, even when it defies explanation? Along the way, I reflect on my own vivid memory of a gargoyle in flight, the tension of Western skepticism, and how this ties to the foundation of JND practice. When Carlos Castaneda asked Don Juan, "Did I really fly?" Don Juan answered in the simplest, most brutal way, "That's what you told me." At first it reads like a dodge. But Don Juan was forcing Carlos to own his own testimony. Will you trust the raw fact of your perception, or hand it over to consensus? That's what you told me. Don Juan wasn't dismissing the question. He was giving it back. My struggle with indoctrination. That same paradox cut into my life after my first stroke. For a time, I was susceptible to rhetoric that aligned with my moral compass. I lost discernment between rhetoric and reality. Anchors became weights, and I found myself looking for external validation rather than trusting the data of my own life. It took 2 years of solitude and a mental sabbatical to rebuild the habit of questioning until bias fell away from my lens. The gargoyle that flew. In that peak state, the question wasn't did I fly, but did the statue fly? I was in the middle of a high-dose LSD session, mid-afternoon in a living room lit bright by natural light. No shadows, no tricks. And yet, a 2-inch gargoyle on a podium crouched, spread its wings, flapped, and looked me directly in the eye as if to invite me. The animation wasn't metaphorical. It was a lived fact, a datum that rearranged how my mind assembled reality. For years I tried to rationalize it away. It was lighting, memory, imagination. But each explanation rang hollow. What remained was the rawness of the experience. Experience is reality. If you lived it, it's part of your map. The JND stance. Don Juan's challenge saved me from betraying myself. If you reported it, you must decide whether to trust it. For me, the gargoyle wasn't fantasy. It was proto-consciousness revealed in a way my indoctrination couldn't accept at the time. JND practice begins right there. Report first, explain later. Trust the datum, then test it without bias. The companion lesson, words with weight. A science fiction story once gave me a parallel lesson. In that world, everyone carried a gun, and insults could justify a duel. On the surface, barbaric. Underneath, an experiment in enforced civility, equalized threat, and people measure their words. It's flawed, but it points to something real. When words carry consequence, they carry care. Put side by side with Don Juan's lesson, the ethic is clear: trust your experience and temper your speech. One protects clarity, the other protects civility. Recovery and relearning. My recovery from the stroke was a recovery of that ethic. I relearned how to laugh at myself when I fell into stories. That chuckle is not embarrassment. It's liberation. It's the soul saying, I was fooled, but now I see. The gargoyle's wings are still flapping. Each time I tell the story, I strengthen the muscle I rebuilt, the muscle of owning what happened, even when it breaks the rules. And the world wasn't finished with its testimony. And then came the anchovies. Because after the gargoyle and I locked eyes, the pizza arrived, all toppings, anchovies included. On that afternoon, even the fish were alive, swimming in molten cheese, part of the same testimony. Some call it hallucination. I call it data. Closing reflection. Words without weight are noise. Experiences without trust are lies. Protect both, and you protect the possibility of clarity in a noisy, fractured world. That's why I still listen when wings flap in stone and fish swim in pizza. Call it madness, call it memory, but I call it data. The map is made of what we dare to trust. I trust the shrooms that grow on the path. If this reflection resonates, consider subscribing. Your support keeps the ink flowing, and the mug full. Thank you for reading. I was mid-vision when the pizza arrived. The gargoyle had already flown, and the anchovies were swimming. That detail kept me honest. Some call it hallucination. I call it data. Even the anchovies were giving testimony. If this resonates, buy me a coffee and, I promise, fewer anchovies, more honesty. Thanks for reading. This post is public, so feel free to share it.